Salutations, Shades, and welcome back to your one-stop shop for all things strange and unusual, talking with shadows. The conversation everyone has, but no one wants to admit to. Here with your host, Vic Waitley.
And a thankfully COVID-free Marcus D.
Oh my god, you need to get a whole freaking biosuit. You get COVID exposure so often.
Yeah, it was really bad. Like, it was Thursday of last week. And we were getting ready to record, and then my wife comes home telling me that she tested positive for COVID, and I'm like, crap. So I had to run out and go get a test for it, and then I threw a big monkey wrench into our recordings. But now we're here. We're going to be kicking off our whole month-long talking about Underwater Paranormal Phenomena.
And we're still here in our halfway completed new studio.
Not gonna, don't want to say maybe it kind of looks like we've got an underground bunker.
A little bit. Basically, it's going to look like a bar setup, and then we're going to be adding the visual element. But right now, like, the electric still only half ran. The carpenter is still drawing up plans for the bar. At least we have a floor now and stuff like that. So, good on us.
Yeah, like, it just kind of, like, we're claiming that we look like paranormal podcasters down here in the studio. Everybody else just thinks that we're like a doomsday couple camping out down here. It's either way. I still think that we look good.
But it's going to be so cool when it's done.
Yes, but since it's still July and we're being patriotic with our alcohol, I guess, we're going to be finishing off the Smirnoff Ice Red, White, and Berry limited edition. They should make more of these because these were actually really good.
They pop up every summer.
Did you already drink before I announced
I actually forgot and took the cap off and started drinking.
Someone is rushing today to get some alcohol.
I am.
Oh, that's so good.
My esophagus is a little hurt today because I ate a too hot chicky nugget.
How old are you?
No, I was eating some chicken nuggets and like I microwaved it. I mean, like sometimes like
No. Fully finish it too because it's even worse. That you got burned by a vegetarian.
It was
chicken nugget.
But you know how like when you microwave stuff, sometimes in the core it gets stupid hot and the outside's still relatively cold. One of them was stupid hot. I bit into it. Everything was fine. When I swallowed it, it released all that steam and burnt up my esophagus. I had to, like, just grab some soda and just start chugging.
Like, how are you always, like, bragging about you going to the gym and working out and getting real buff and real fit? You're like, I bit into a really hot vegetarian chicken nugget. It burned my mouth. Like,
man, I am the most jacked soy boy you will ever see.
I know. That's what makes it worse.
I like subverting stereotypes.
We're succeeding today. Oh, man. If you guys haven't already, go check out our last episode where we talked about entombed animals, where we finally got to talk about the topic that never was. Talking about this whole phenomenon of lizards and amphibians and mammals, too, being found encased in wood and solid stone, being broken open and crawling out alive. Very weird phenomenon.
Very strange.
I mean, going back for hundreds of years.
Although I did say in a previous episode there's no scientific explanation for it, and then I found some that might work. But in this episode, I promise you to bring you something scientifically pretty much impossible.
So weird. It's bizarre. I say look at it because there are some weird reasons about why more people are not looking into this. All right, let's go over some comments. Jay the Phoenix, patron, says, so I've seen something similar, I think. I was excavating a hillside to install a road salt holding area, the idea being the ground would prevent freezing. This fleshy white sack tumbles out of the hillside on a scoop of dirt and turns out to be a pale frog. Didn't see a hole or anything. It seemed like its skin was stretched around somehow like a barrier.
Oh, yeah, this sounds very similar because a lot of them talk about them having this growth over their eyes and mouths, And it has to be that mucus barrier, that mucus shield that frogs can create to like seal in their own moisture. I would wonder what time is it said what time of year this was?
Mm-mm.
Out of curiosity, if you could respond with what time of year that was.
Gabriel Yu says, I think it's difficult to get I think it's difficult to get funding to study this phenomenon. I don't think all biologists discount this, but it's difficult to make a case for it, largely because there's probably isn't enough collectible data. Difficult to study with so few specimens per time they're found. I'm going to argue with that only in which I do know how, like, some of the studies that we do with, like, animals, like lab rats and stuff, like, I mean, like, that they're very just cool with being able to. I think that there is a possibility to get funding for this.
I think most grant committees are going to throw this out. I really think they are. I think the grant committees are going to go like, no, we're not.
I have seen some of the funding that they have funded. I think that it is completely possible. Okay, I may have been a part of some grants to do some work, and I'm not going to say we're some waste of time.
I'm not going to say it's impossible, but I think like you're not going to have a very competitive like grant bid.
All right. Avis Rex, the Dark Phoenix, said, "You gentlemen are the masters of mythology and folklore." Well, thank you, good sir.
Thank you.
And
That's high praise.
And thank you for the phenomenal artwork that you did for this episode as well.
Wait, does this mean I'm as cool as Joseph Campbell? Because that's always been one of my goals in life.
No, this means that Avis Rex is as cool as Joseph Campbell.
There we go.
That's what it is. I'm merely a pen to making your words and theories into images. That was said so nice. Also, I'm not a paleontologist officially, just a very avid enthusiast. Apology accepted, though. I'm glad to do it for you guys.
Well, thank you. We love all your art.
Thank you very much. We always appreciate it. If you guys ever send us fan artwork, we will absolutely post it in the Discord and gush over it. We do appreciate it, guys. Thank you so much. All right, so now we're going to go into our topic for today. We're going to be talking. This is us kicking off the rest of the month talking about underwater paranormal phenomenon. And I'm super excited about this.
Actually, I want to talk about some of the crazy news that's been going on
thank you.
first.
Thank you for stopping me on that. I appreciate that. Yeah.
Because there's been some very strange news since our last episode.
Yeah. First thing, and I know some of our patrons were talking about this too. First thing that was really weird, somebody attacking the Georgia Guidestones. That was like super weird. It was like a week or so ago. I think it was on July 7th. Like some vandals blew it up, and there's footage of a car driving away, and they still haven't found the people responsible for blowing it up.
I don't think they're looking very hard. A lot of the local officials were very on board with the destruction of the Georgia Guidestones already.
Well, they just recently finished actually demolishing the damage that was already done, so they broke them down. But I mean, a lot of people if you don't know what the Georgia Guidestones are, they're like these. There are a couple of these really like large slabs, and they're written in multiple languages. No home to this, but I'm pretty sure it's Greek, Sanskrit.
Sanskrit.
Why would I say Sanskrit? Sumerian?
I don't think Sumerian.
Babylonian.
Maybe Babylonian.
Babylonian. In English.
I think Chinese was on there as well.
I thought it was 4. Don't hold me to that. But anyway, but there's a lot of people at the time, whenever they were built, really didn't like a whole lot of the stuff whenever that it went up. So I'm really shocked that it took 40 years for somebody to finally actually vandalize this thing.
Well, people have been vandalizing it for years.
Well, I mean,
never to the point of actually blowing it up.
Like trying to actually like take it out. I mean, and to be fair, like a lot of people will be like Christians don't like it and they say it's satanic and terrible. I'm like,
there's tons of conspiracies surrounding the Guidestones.
And I'm just saying, in their defense, the stuff that's written on there is some pretty creepy stuff that most people I don't even really think are super on board for. No. Like maintaining a human population under 500 million.
It too low. Yeah,
that's a very low genocide number. So, I think a lot of people have some issues with that. And that's just for starters of some of the stuff that's written on there as a way to just guide humanity to a better place. Like,
I know this is a little bit of a hot take here, but I was never really that worried about the Georgia Guidestones.
Well, they don't do anything.
Yeah, my feeling was this. Some weird person left it in their will and built a trust to have this built. It's not going to chase me down and hurt me. I don't see a lot of people going, hey, these are great ideas. Yeah, no, like if the Georgia Guidestones were out there and then a bunch of people were like, oh yeah, no, we should execute all of these, then I would be worried.
Like, okay. So like whenever it went up, a lot of people like really disliked it, but a lot of the stuff has just been stuff that honestly, like, I get it. It's like, guide reproduction wisely, uniting humanity under one language, ruling passion, faith, and tradition, all things. All stuff that I think that we've all been arguing about for the last, 200,000 years.
And I will actually be on board with the universal language. I actually think that that's not the world's worst idea.
Like, I'm gonna go the other way, that I think that a lot of people are very proud of their cultural languages, that some people may not want to believe that we want to make an official worldwide language.
I'm not saying that this isn't an idea without resistance.
Just saying as to why maybe people have been arguing about this stuff since since the dawn of time. So I don't really think that the Georgia Guidestones actually brought anything to light that people cultures just haven't been arguing about for years.
The other thing I wanted to talk about was the find by Nathaniel Coyote Peterson. Not someone I was familiar with, but Ellie was familiar with them and brought this to my attention. He found, while in Canada's British Columbia, this very strange sort of skull. Now, a lot of people have been attributing to him that he claims that it's a Bigfoot skull. To the best of my knowledge, he's not the one making the claims, but a lot of people around him have. But one of the things I'll say is that's a pretty damn primate-y looking skull.
That looks like a prop from the King Kong movie. Like,
I mean,
it's huge.
It's not that big, I don't think.
I'm pretty sure the photo of him standing next to him, it's as big as him, isn't it?
I have a picture of it with his hand next to it, and it looks about correct for a potential gorilla skull.
I'm pretty sure I saw a photo of it. Well, sorry. I think maybe.
Yeah, I'm looking at pictures of him handling it. No, it is not as big as him.
Oh, man, I've totally messed that up. I really thought that was just him next to it. That's my bad.
Were you looking at a prop from King Kong?
No, I wasn't looking at the prop
from King
Kong.
Why it
No,
like
I was
that.
looking at the one that was zoomed in, so it was making it look way bigger.
Okay.
And the photo, and he's in a photo next to it, so it looks as though that they're about the same size. So that's where I'm messing that up. That's my bad.
Like, I personally... Okay. Correct me if I'm wrong, but Bigfoot is usually described with having a fairly flat, rounded face, very similar to a human.
Mm-hmm.
Where this thing doesn't seem to be that. It seems to have a form of maw. Mm-hmm. Like, this seems like a gorilla sculpture, although you do have that very pronounced sagittal crest, and this is definitely not something that should be native to British Columbia, unless I'm just forgetting something. But this does look like a primate skull to me. Excuse me. Like, perhaps he found something that was planted there for him. Perhaps someone lost a gorilla skull in British Columbia. Or maybe he's finding some of the last evidence of the gorillas of British Columbia.
The problem is like the front part of the skull is sticking out way further from the eye sockets. So it's more like the forehead's sticking out and the eyes slope inward. So it's more. So to me, it doesn't fully look like a Bigfoot skull because it just seems like the forehead's way more pronounced.
Yeah, I definitely don't think that. I don't think that this is a skull that matches Bigfoot descriptions very consistently. But assuming that this isn't like a fake out, or this isn't something that someone had just lost there, is a pretty amazing thing, because I'm pretty willing to say that looks like a primate skull to me.
I mean, I don't think that Coyote Peterson is the kind of guy that's gonna like make up stuff. Like I've never really found any of his. I mean, I've never found him to make those sort of outlandish claims.
Yeah, that's what Ellie told me. Like I said, I hadn't followed this guy before, but she's aware of him.
Mm-hmm. Like I know that he does a lot of normal stuff just with wildlife and stuff. So this just seems like it's just kind of weird. But I mean, that just don't hold me to it. I find it odd.
But like, assuming it's not faked or planted there for him to find, pretty amazing find.
Mm-hmm. Tell us what you guys think about the Georgia Guidestones. Do you guys and the Coyote Peterson Bigfoot skull? Do you think that it's actually a Bigfoot skull? Do you think that it's just another type of primate? Let us know about the Georgia Guidestones, about whether or not, if you think that this was. What do you guys think about it? Like, do you think somebody just finally got enough and just blew it up? Do you guys think that it was an inside job? Might get into a little bit more of that into the Pillow Talk segment or in another episode particularly. But I want to get some of your guys' initial thoughts because I'm not fully done looking into it yet.
Okay, but for today, we wanted to talk about tentacles from the deep.
Cue eerie Cthulhu music.
Wait. That's the closest I got on the soundboard. But no, we're thinking about what did we want to talk about today. We were obviously wanting to talk about some sort of underwater cryptid-y thing, and we're like, let's just do a grab bag tentacle thing. And I got what I want us to start out with. Mm-hmm. My favorite deep sea monster. Absolutely love this. Utterly absurd. The Lusca. If you are not familiar with the Lusca, if you really do want to dig into the folklore of what it looks like, you do get a variety of descriptions. But one of them I really, really, really like. Imagine a giant shark that halfway down its body, around where our belly button would be, it decided it wants to be an octopus. That's right, octoshark. I absolutely love this thing. I think it's one of the coolest, like, supernatural cryptids things out there. There's no way of justifying this thing within biology. You're mixing vertebrate traits with invertebrate traits. I can't imagine if it's an animal how this thing could have evolved. But it is such a wonderfully interesting creature, I can't wait to talk about it.
Like, it looks like the kind of creature that you would fight in a D&D campaign.
Oh, yeah, I'd love to run this in a D&D game.
Like, it's just super cool. Like, I just kept saying, it's like, it's got the brain of a shark and the brain of an octopus at the same time, which I don't know if makes it smarter or dumb. Like, it's handicapped, like, for the sake of, like, trying to, like, figure stuff out.
Now, one thing about the Lusca is it's bigger than either creature. There are a variety of different descriptions on how big the Lusca could be, but the upper ends place it, around 200 feet is one of the higher numbers I found. Other people say it's closer to, like, say, 30 feet, which is still pretty big, and I've also seen 70 or in the 70s. Mainly in warm areas in the Bahamas is where its site is. Supposedly, it's something that lives down in the blue spots. And the blue spots are like, imagine a sinkhole, but underwater, where suddenly there's just this super, super, super deep hole underwater.
Yeah, like it's like if you look up photos of blue holes, it really just does look like you'll see these coral like a lot of times they're like coral reefs, there's blue seas, and then just this weird dark hole that looks like something's either about to come up or it's about to just flat out eat you.
And there is something to be said about this. Think about the primordial forest that was found in China. Are you familiar with this? Mm-hmm. Where there's this mostly underground area, but there is enough light for plant life to live, and you have these extremely distinct biomes down there with trees that look more like trees from a primordial period. Mm-hmm. In these unique built spaces, you can really have unique life forms popping up. It's kind of similar to Darwin's theory on islands and how islands seem to bring out very distinct adaptations. So I would believe that there is potential for something unique to live around that area. Something I would like to throw out that might be more biologically feasible. These blue holes are deep spots in generally shallow water.
Correct.
And these are generally clear water areas where you can see through the water fairly easily. If you think of the silhouette of a Lusca, the shark combined with the octopus, what else would look like that when viewed from above?
A shark and an octopus, like together. Oh, giant squid.
Yeah, giant squid. This really makes me think that, because, the squid, it has that arrowhead shape to it. I really think, like, say, a fisherman viewing it from above, basically looking down into the water and only seeing the shadow of it, could easily misread it as a creature that is part shark, part octopus. Well, and I think that's a lot more viable of a theory.
Well, I mean, also, if you look at just what a blue hole looks like, it just looks like an ominous part of the ocean.
Yeah.
Like if you're going to think, like, people of, like, mankind, it's just, like, when you think about, like, just mankind's imagination and we just have to fill in the gaps, like, when you think about the sea, like, we can't help but just guess and fathom and try to make sense of what's down there. And so, like, if you're trying to think of, like, something of, like, say, like, a giant crater, like, giant hole in the ocean of what could be lurking down there, just to me breeds, like, just this idea that the idea of making a monster or something that would, like live down there. Like, it's the perfect storm of making something like that of what would live down there.
Now, justifying in a shallow water area something along the lines of a 200-foot squid in itself is difficult. Like a 200-foot, like, yes, the blue holes are big, but a 200-foot squid would be a very odd sort of body shape for that area.
Well, I mean, octopuses also just don't get that long. I mean, they just don't get, and also I think that most, and I keep saying it, humans are not good at estimating like size. They're just not. We're just bad at it. I mean, it's just one of the things that we're just not very good at it. So I think a lot of times people are probably just guessing the size of it. They're just going to just guess of how big something could be. Now, that's not to say this creature doesn't exist. I'm not saying that. Like, I'm just saying that maybe if it comes to the size of guessing of why they're maybe saying it's that big.
But at that, I would say there's probably some hyperbole going on with the size, and you're 100% correct. Octopi do not get that big. Right. Even giant octopi are not that big.
Like it reminds me of the scene from like True Lies. They're like, why would they say it's that big? Because it sounds scary.
But squid, on the other hand, can be very big. I think the largest squid that we've ever found was somewhere around 40-some feet.
Right.
I don't remember the exact number, but it was big.
Are you trying to say the people of the Bahamas can't tell the difference between an octopus and a squid?
No, I'm saying that if you're viewing from a fishing boat looking down, the silhouette of a large squid, which you're probably not that familiar with seeing, is going to look a lot like a half shark, half octopus.
Right. I'm using our normal argument that people try to make about people just from the area not being able to recognize their own animals.
Well, I mean, they're probably looking down several layers of water. Yeah. They're probably not getting a real close look at this because, water does distort to a degree. Like, I could legitimately see some form of giant squid specialized living in these deep water holes, coming out periodically to feed when it's exhausted its normal feeding source. I don't really think that that's far outside the realm of possibility. And a lot of people who are studying the few remains we have of actual large squid, they're really not. We've learned a lot from them. One of the things we haven't figured out is where are these creatures on their growth cycle? Are these young? Are these older? And one scientist had argued that they think that we're looking at juveniles due to a lack of sexual reproductive organs being in a state of functionality. So they postulated that most of the giant squids and colossal squids we found are actually still juveniles.
Well, like with sharks, they just keep getting bigger, don't they? Like, as they age, I mean, they max out, I guess, to a point, but...
Squid Squid have a very unique body shape, almost entirely exclusive to them, and this isn't true of say other cephalopods. You know how like octopi are known for being very intelligent. They have a very unique brain structure.
Well, to be fair, the brain's going to be in the shark part. Just saying.
The squid brain is very strange in the animal world. Imagine a donut, and they have these kind of round shaped brains like a donut. And guess what's going through the hole?
What?
Their esophagus. So, when a squid eats something too large, what do you think can happen to it?
Oh, takes out its brain.
Yeah, it takes out its brain, and it can effectively cause something that would be akin to a stroke. They just have very unique, strange biology. And not always in the best ways. Like I would call that a bad design. But it's one of the reasons like squid are not that intelligent in comparison to like say octopi. Their brain structures are very different from an octopi, and they also have these issues of the organ doesn't have a lot of opportunity to grow as it evolves because you're then shrinking your esophagus, and you still run into the same issue of if you swallow something too big, it's stroke time. So they just had this very strange sort of biology when it comes to that.
Well, you get like shark. I mean, the problem is you're dealing with something that's supposed to be like half shark, half squid. So it's sort of like at the same time, what happens if like if it eats something too big? Do you know what a shark will go is like? It's time to bone, like because that's pretty much kind of how like that's when great white sharks breed a lot is around like massive when it's eating like a huge meal like something.
Like my only assumption is if it is part shark, part octopus, there would have to be this amazing leap of convergent evolution where it, as a vertebrate, had suddenly independently evolved these octopi-like structures and the nervous system to properly utilize them. Now, if we're talking about, like, some people do speculate that the Lusca is a spiritual creature, that it's more of a spirit animal of the ocean. Now that, sure, yeah, spirit animals, to the best of my knowledge, do not have to follow normal natural law. So, yes, if it's something like a manifestation of the ocean or some sort of divine creature, yes, sure, perhaps. But if we're talking about it in the context of biology, nothing about this makes sense. Like, for example, where does it eat from? It has 2 eaty holes. like the design of the Lusca would mean it eats in its back end and its front end.
Well, to be fair, though, I think that one of the things that it could do, it probably eats like a shark because the back part of it would shoot it like a jet, like how a normal shark would attack, where it would open its mouth and it might breach or eat something. I think that it could still eat that. I think that it could still hunt, though.
Well, perhaps, but the question is more like, could it hunt effectively? And truthfully, I don't think it could because, okay, when a shark comes at you and is trying to attack you, what part's coming at you first?
I would say a giant sense of dread.
Well, okay, yes, of course. But the mouth, its predatory strategy is
wide
to
open.
Basically rush that big old mouth at you.
Yes.
Now, when an octopi attacks, what does it lead with?
It leads with the tentacles.
Yeah, it leads with the tentacles in this wide net-catching motion with the beak open. Or if we're talking about a squid, it'll use the longer. I can't remember the name for it. No, wait, no. The tentacles are the long, shooty, grabby tentacles on a squid, and the other ones are referred to as arms, I believe. But it's going to like basically harpoon with a really long tentacles and drag in. But once again, it's going to be that part forward. This thing, I guess, could attack 2 directions, but I don't think that's as good as like the shark strategy or the octopus strategy.
Well, I think one of the ways that if it travels light, well, I think octopus can shoot themselves. Well, I mean, squid can. I mean, depending on the squid.
Octopus, squid, cuttlefish, they can all do the jet thing to various capabilities.
Which I think is really good synergy to a shark attack, which it's rushing you, which is one of the things that it would do. So I think that that's still feasible for hunting. I do.
I don't think with the mouth open, it could create the pressure to produce the jet. Like, I kind of feel like that it might not work that way. I'm not a shark/squid biologist here. I could be incorrect. Maybe it totally could build the pressure with this body shape. Mm-hmm. I just feel somewhat doubtful.
Unless the shark part's supposed to be like a decoy or something.
I still think the shark part is really just someone missing the squid half of it.
No. So I'm going to make the case here that I think what the Lusca is evidence of a glitch in the Matrix. I think that what this is evidence is someone has hacked the code of the program that we all apparently are in, and someone did a cheat code, and they entered the Lusca into existence as a gaffe. That's what I think that it is.
History's filled with weird chimeric creatures. That is a thing, so maybe there's some function that causes these weird chimeric creatures or something like that, but I couldn't begin to explain what that function would be. A glitch in the Matrix? Sure, I kind of hope that the Lusca exists as Sharktopus. That is such a freaking cool design. I'm just saying, scientifically, it does not pan... I can't conceive of ways to make this work outside of miracles.
Honestly, if you really think about the Sharktopus, it kind of sounds like the explanation that Mrs. Garrison gave in South Park for evolution. whenever she was like trying to badmouth evolution. I was like, got a sharktopus. One shark saw an octopus, decided to boat it. They had sex, then they made a sextopus. Like just angrily or something like that. Like that's kind of what it reminds me of.
There are reports periodically of Luscas washing up. Many of them are older reports. Many of them are hard to. We're getting to it. We're building up to it. But many of them, they weren't well documented outside of this washed up. It seemed to have been part shark and part octopus, and there's just rare references to it. With one exception, the St. Augustine Monster. And you seem like you were wanting to jump in at that point.
Well, I was talking about the one in 2011.
Oh, okay. No, enlighten me on it. I thought we were going someplace else.
No, so it was on January 18th, 2011, off the it was off the island of Grand Bahama Island. A carcass washed up on shore, and most people thought that what washed up on shore was only a part of something. Like it already began to decompose, and they thought that it was like part of a head and some of the mouths of it, and it was about 20 to 30 feet when it washed up on shore, and everybody's like thought it was a Lusca. Some people thought it was whale fat. Some people thought it was other stuff, like it was just a decomposing whale. Because I mean, you see globsters and stuff washing up all of the time, and like there's other reports too of like anytime that any sort of body washes up, you'll see some like local papers and stuff that'll do that, and you can see some chatter of some people trying to claim that it's like either evidence of the Lusca or food or evidence that it was feeding out there or something.
Is it this picture? Is that the right picture? I want to make sure I'm looking at the right thing.
Yeah, that's the right one.
Okay. I love looking at globsters.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Let's get this popped up and dig into this. My first thought is the coloration does remind me of how fat tends to discolor in sun. One of the downsides of globsters like this, a lot of people say, why can't we just test it and get its DNA? A lot of people don't realize sun tends to bleach DNA to being 100% useless. And by the time a globster makes it to shore, it's pretty damn bleach.
Also, here's another thing. Why would the government care? Like seriously, like because if they don't test it, all people just do is speculate. So they never prove anything. So why would they really want to test it if they were trying to hide evidence of it?
Well, a lot of people wonder why science can't just do that and give us conclusive answers. And the problem is, like, there's usually no good testable DNA.
Yeah, you also just generally just can't stop scavenger animals showing up by the time that it does. Like most of the time, these globsters are washing up on islands. It's not like, it's not like scientists with DNA kits are nearby to be able to get there just as quickly. To be able to get there.
And beyond that, it's also gone through the process of maturation through the water, where basically the body has stretched and condensed and has moved with the water, and it basically has caused it to warp and fall apart.
Right.
A macerated body is basically just barely held together. Looking at this, to tell you the truth, I can't tell the difference between this one and most other globsters. It looks like, my first guess is a basking shark. Basking sharks decay in very odd sort of ways. Like, that famous picture of the plesiosaur corpse being pulled out? Yeah. That's probably a basking shark, because a rotting basking shark for some reason looks a lot like a plesiosaur. Or the government has tricked me into thinking that that's true. Also a possibility. But I kind of think this might be a basking shark. But maybe not. It's a globster. It's hard to tell what it could be. Maybe it is a Lusca. Too hard to say. But the St. Augustine Monster was another time when a globster had washed up, and basically this one actually went through a degree of documentation. People from the news had come out, viewed it. There were things written on it, and there were scientists that looked at it. And the first naturalist who showed up basically examined and went, new species of octopus, way bigger than anything else, just massive species of octopus. He claimed that he was able to find tentacles and other signs of it being taxonomically a octopus.
To be fair, this is like 1896.
Yeah,
so
it's 1896.
They were still discovering animals at this point too. Okay, I'm like, I just don't want you to be like,
We're still
like,
discovering animals today.
Well, I know, but I've been like, it just sounds like someone just saying, "No, we don't know what this is." Like, it just. To be fair, this was like 120 years ago.
And
Just saying.
He named the new species Octopus giganteus. Extremely creative. But then, like, some tests were sent away and were studied and came back. They're saying, like, no, this is just whale fat. And it started a bit of an academic argument with most people eventually accepting that it was whale fat. One of the things I would like to say, though, is I don't know how you could conclusively prove in that time period that it was sperm whale blubber. They say that in 1995, there was a conclusive study on it being consistent with sperm whale blubber because they still had the test sample still preserved. But I don't know exactly how they're going to determine that. I would be very surprised if there was still usable DNA in it. Perhaps there was. Maybe they got very lucky. But one of the things is between the bleaching, the maturation, and then the formaldehyde they probably had to store it in, I'm a little surprised they were able to get a conclusive answer, but I can't dispute it either. Right. It's not like I have my own test sample to go over, and I don't know how to do DNA sequences.
I mean,
that's way above me.
I mean, again, it's not like to say that we can just easily test this. Because, I mean, if you look at the Montauk Monster, like in the early 2000s, nobody tested that, and everybody still argues about whether or not if it was a raccoon or a possum or something like that, and still to this day. And actually, multiple of those things were washing up on the shore of the United States during that time. I don't think anybody was ever just going out and testing anything. So I think that's why it's hard for us to like test some of these globsters to wash up to see if they're really like the Lusca. And to be fair, you know, that's to say globsters washing up are maybe evidence that they are a Lusca. They could be evidence of a Lusca eating something. You know, to be fair. Because you know, it's a really weird phenomenon, by the way, I'd like to point out, though. This is something that I thought that was really interesting. You never... Since the invention of like TikTok and the Instagram reel, you still never see anybody ever still doing out like photographic evidence of these globsters that have ever washed up. They still don't make it to social media, which I think
sometimes they do. Sometimes
I haven't seen any reels of anything like that have popped up.
Maybe not in the last 5 years.
You don't have Instagram or TikTok.
Yeah, but it usually eventually gets around to me.
Like, I'm not saying that it's not on Instagram, but I'm saying, like, just some of this evidence. I mean, to be fair, though, who really wants to take, like, a photograph of a decomposing animal? I get it, but I still do find it kind of odd when it comes to this.
It might also violate their TOS. Like, because remember when we did our Montauk Monster video on YouTube? What was YouTube's response to our video on the Montauk Monster?
They demonetized it, being like, this might be insensitive for some people to see. I'm like, I've seen what you put on your website, people. Like, I know. Okay, don't give me none of that crap.
Yeah, but ultimately, they deemed it a violation of the TOS. Or at least to the point where
I want evidence. I want globsters on my social media. Okay? I am okay with globsters being on my social media. I don't think it's that bad.
And I would agree with you.
If I
globsters no more, I think, repulsive than any sort of preserved specimen.
If I got to see Kim Kardashian shaking her ass on Instagram, I'm okay with seeing a globster. Okay, thank you very much.
Such an old reference, boomer.
We're both old. We're both pushing 40. Don't give me that.
Sorry, it was just complaining about the Kardashians. It's very old.
That's fair.
Like, I don't know who you complain about nowadays. Maybe The Weeknd. I don't know.
I don't know who else to complain about. Like on that. I mean, it's not like I'm on that much, but
okay. One of the things I did want to talk about is you have to be somewhat careful going down the study of these strange tentacled creatures, because I want to talk about some of the ones that I'm pretty sure are not real. Like the Lusca, I actually really legitimately think that this could be a misidentified, unknown species of large squid. Because we know squids can get large, the description of the Lusca, although fantastical, does still lend to what the shadow of a squid would look like. I think there's some serious possibility here. Have you heard of organism 46B?
No.
Okay. I'm going to give you the quick and dirty of it. It was supposedly this octopi-like tentacled organism that was found below a ice lake in Russia some years ago, and that when they're drilling down there, they had discovered it was very intelligent, super poisonous, and that basically Putin had it stolen to be used for secret research and stuff. We had mentioned this, I think, when the story first hit 5 years ago.
Now I'm pulling this up now. I remember this. It's getting there. Yeah, I remember that.
The story had a lot of holes in it, particularly since the lake that they're talking about in this. I could try to pronounce it, but I really don't think I'm going to get it right. If you look into it, you'll find the name of the lake real easy.
Oh, Vostok?
It was at Vostok.
Yeah, Lake Vostok.
There, you say it. I just don't
Lake
get it right.
Vostok. I'll say that again.
First, the research people that were there were digging a borehole at this time to study what life might live in the liquid water below a massive, massive amount of ice. The problem is these boreholes are tiny. They're very small. It's just enough to get a water sample. I don't know how you get like a 30-foot creature back up through that hole, and I don't think they're going to be able to dig a hole through that ice for that far in that environment to get it out. No matter how much Putin would have wanted this creature, I just don't think he could have gotten it. Beyond that, it's very likely that this was a fictional story that was basically like a creepypasta that had spiraled out of control. I'm not saying that couldn't be that could actually be faked very easily, but I think this time it's true because I can't think of how they could have gotten that out of there.
Well, the weird thing is this just sounds like a cooler story than what it is. Because at the core of it, it's more or less just like this tentacle creature that just has a poison that they wanted. To be fair,
it was like hyper intelligent.
Yeah, they have access to these animals already. Like, it's not like you just can't find poisonous animals like in the Russian wilderness or even off the coasts. Like, I that was the part that I found weird, that even if it was real, like.
And what's Putin going to do with this super poison? Is he going to dip every Russian bullet in it?
No, he's going to dip their nukes in it so that they're more effective. That's what he's going to do.
Like, for the most part, I just don't think it pans out very well. I think it's more likely to be a hoax than not.
Oh, never mind. Oh, also part of the story is that this thing could shapeshift into people. I'm reading another part of the story here. That sounds a little bit more interesting about why particularly now Putin might be interested in it. I forgot about that aspect of the story.
Which, truthfully, wouldn't be impossible for an octopus-like creature. Their shape-shifting ability is absolutely nuts. Now, for it to then be able to walk on land, that's where it's stretched. But, like, there's even octopi that will run on two legs. Like, they'll do this thing underwater where they'll wrap 4 of their tentacles together, then 4 of their tentacles together, basically making 2 legs, and then run like heck to get away from an enemy. That's something that some octopus do sometimes. I've seen video of it. It looks really weird.
That's a far stretch from shape-shifting.
Oh, no, but shape-shifting is something that they can do. We don't know how they can do it. But octopi, it depends on the species to what capability they can fully mimic the color and texture of objects that they even haven't seen. We're not sure how they do it, but they can. Like, we've tested this repeatedly. Their shape-shifting power is beyond any other animals.
I don't know. I mean, I still think that they're saying that they shapeshift into the form of a human diver, which now takes this way up a notch. I don't know if they would get. Now, to be fair, what this could have been them doing something like what you're talking about, and then it's just blew up out of proportion of like exaggerating what they were talking about, what they did. So that may have been something that may have happened.
Either way, if they found it down there, they couldn't have gotten it. I don't think they could have gotten it. Are you going to
find octopuses though that like can in ice cold, like that they're drilling ice into up there in Russia?
Well, the question is do we have examples of octopi in that lake? Because that lake is so unique that it's hard to make a comparison to.
Like I don't think that there's octopuses in like that where they're having to like drill straight through ice like that. I don't think.
Well, it is liquid water a certain ways down, and octopi can survive in Arctic conditions. That specific Arctic condition is so unique, you can't really make a comparison to it. So I can't compare it to another example and say there are not octopi there, because it's a purely unique like situation there. We're using it to study what life could be like on Europa. That is how alien this biome is, because it's been cut off from the surface for freaking forever. I don't remember how long, but it's been a very long time. But like, oh god, we're pretty much out of time. Can we do one more story that's kind of along those same lines?
Sure.
The other one I'd say is take with a grain of salt, but maybe not too big of a grain of salt, is the story of the Oklahoma octopus. It's these 3 lakes in Oklahoma where there's supposedly a abnormally high amount of deaths attributed to drowning, and that sometimes when they're fishing the corpses back out, there's octopi-like suction cups on there, like basically wounds from them. I think that this was something that was a slight story bore by those legends of those bodies looking like that, which I do believe they came out like that, but I have an explanation. And then when the Lost Tapes franchise did their Oklahoma octopus thing, it basically exploded. When it comes to trying to trace down any of these stories, it all goes back to that episode. I just think that this one's unlikely to be real. And for why those suction cup-shaped wounds, those are lakes that have lampreys that get into them.
Yeah,
lampreys will leave suction cup-like wounds.
That'll just do that. Like, I'm just saying, if you want to believe in like Oklahoma octopuses, I've got a story about Lake Michigan great white sharks. Which, by the way, I would love to do. By the way, as a story. By the way, because that's a really interesting conversation.
But at that, I think there might be octopi in the Ohio River because of the falls of Ohio. But
to be fair, I'm not convinced that great white sharks might not be living in Lake Michigan.
That is fascinating. I'm looking forward to hearing this story. Is that what we're doing in the patron segment? Because you had me want to hear about this.
No. I would like to talk about that for a full episode, not necessarily in the patron section. But what are some final thoughts on like the Lusca and the second 2 that you brought up?
The Lusca isn't really taken seriously in crypto circles, in my opinion, because of its incredibly fantastical body shape. But when you put yourself into the context of the time period and allowing yourself to think that this is something that they're probably looking down on through different darknesses, different amounts of debris in the water, they're probably only getting an outline, and I think the outline becomes something that could legitimately be a big creature. We could be ignoring a somewhat shallow water giant squid, which we know giant squids are real, but we could be ignoring a rare shallow water variant just because the core story is very fantastical. I think it actually does merit more looking into.
I think what the Lusca is, I think it's an example of, I think for years, sailors have been reported seeing giant squids. I think they've been reported seeing these large sea creatures, but unfortunately we can't get physical evidence of it because it's not like photographs existed. And everybody just thought they were crazy that sea monsters existed. What I think that the Lusca is I think that it is from that, like people reported seeing giant squids, and then it's just this massive game of telephone of people just making these fanciful stories about things like that to represent a real experience that somebody had before. I'm not saying that doesn't make the story any less cool. I still think it's very awesome. I think it's a great part of folklore. I think it's a really interesting cryptid. Makes a phenomenal D&D monster for your players to fight, 100%. But I think that's what it is. I think it's people exaggerating stories of giant squids that sailors have been seeing for years.
If anyone finds a stack block for a sharktopus for D&D, send it to me, because I need to scare the poop out of my players.
Yeah. Tell us more about what you guys think about the Lusca. There are other examples of it that we failed to bring up. Do you guys have any other thoughts on whether or not if it could be real? We didn't really even get into the Hollow Earth, and that maybe something that big could be hiding underwater. Like, we didn't really get into any of that. So if anybody has thoughts about that, put that in the comments below.
I'm not going to lie. I didn't think of that.
Mm-hmm.
But that's a neat idea.
Mm-hmm. But again, if you guys like this, don't forget to like, subscribe, hit that notification bell so you guys can stay up to date whenever we put out new content. But until next time, guys, keep believing.
Because we'll keep listening.
All right, everybody, we're going to slide into the Pillow Talk segment of our podcast. If you want to check out the rest of this awesome podcast, all you got to do is go over to our Patreon and sign up For as little as $1 a month, you get the rest of our awesome podcasts, as well as bonus episodes that we put up. And if you sign up for $2 more of a month, you get access to the poll to vote on the theme for the month. And right now, currently winning on our poll is Nuclear Paranormal Phenomenon. Awesome. With some other ones up there, such as Past Life Phenomenon, The Apocalypse, and Famous Paranormal Investigators. I'd also like to bring up, and it might be slightly concerning, that during the break, Vic immediately asked me to take off my shirt, and I thought that was kind of concerning.
Okay, no, this was not something that was weird.
It was just out of nowhere.
He's sitting over there, sweating like crazy, complaining about being hot, saying he's feeling nauseous like he's overheating. He's dripping sweat. He looks like he's about to die.